7 o'clock, time for us to review the newspapers right here on Morning Express. I'll start by introducing the panel that we have here today to review the newspaper and also later on to review the week that has been. I'll start with the lady. We have Nerima Wako Ojiwa, who is a director at Siasa Place. Karibu sana. We're also joined by Philip Magal, who's a lawyer. And last but not least, Mark Bichachi, who's a political strategist. Thank you, lady and gentlemen, for joining us this morning. We go straight into the dailies, and we start off with a rather disturbing story on the Standard. And Catholic priest killed in cult ritual. This is Father Michael Kiengo, a victim of a ritual killing, as it is asked by the Standard. Now, we do know that his body was found mutilated and buried in some place, but according to the investigations and according to this story, apparently it was a ritual. And one of the people who has been arrested and is in custody says that it was a ritual of a group known as Illuminati. And apparently, this was a sacrifice for him to become wealthier and have more influence. Let's start with Philip Magal. Yes. You are a lawyer. What do you read from this shallow grave story?
I really, as far as the Illuminati is concerned, I really don't know what to make of it. Yeah? And then to me, that is a confession that should be used to nail this fellow. The murder was brazen. It was, it was really a gruesome murder. And I think it is a high time our courts really, and the police got really serious about nailing this.
Getting to the bottom of such.
And putting them away for life. These are some of the things that bring out the conversation as to whether we should retain the death penalty or not. In my humble estimation, we should. We shouldn't be keeping such people alive when they kill others without a second thought.
Particularly if this is found to be true, yes. That they actually killed him in cold blood murder. And, well, for what? For riches, wealth, influence, things that are transient. Mark Bichachi, I know you have a religious side. What do you make of this? Particularly, we've had a lot about Illuminati. We've had lots about them. I don't know much about them, and I really don't think I want to. But, well, here's the story on the headline.
I am so tickled. And the reason I'm so tickled, of course, I feel very sad at the death of the Catholic priest, but I'm tickled at the foolishness of whoever executed this murder. Because you must understand that there is no secret organization in the world which grows by the death of a priest. It gains nothing. And this is someone who most likely has fallen prey to many of these things that are happening online, where people are recruited to join Illuminati groups. And if you read the story, you will see that the fellow repainted the car of the priest. And that just tells you what his IQ is, because repainting a car is not changing its number plate, and neither is it making it very hard to trace. So you can tell that this is a fellow who was easily conned, and it's easy to tell because he's talking about that there was a website. And these websites, what they usually do is they go around recruiting people. I'm sure someone of your caliber, you've gotten a friend request from someone. Yes, weird people, wearing weird collars, and they've got the
compass and everything.
The compass and the what, and they tell you, I am so and so of this rank in the Illuminati. If you pay how many $1,000, we will get you into a website. And then these websites always have strange instructions. But if this guy was going up in rank by the killing, then why did it become necessary for him to steal the car? And that shows you that this is someone who's delusional, someone who's believed into the whatever teaching he was taught on this website. And then, of course, to blame it on Illuminati is very easy, because Illuminati is a secret organization. So what I do is I start my version, Nerima start hers, and then now all of a sudden you got all these online versions of these things. But that should tell you that just because you belong to an organization, whether it's real or not, I personally don't think it exists, but whether it's real or not, you must have personal discretion as a person to be able to be mature enough to know that I'm not going to kill a priest, because what does a priest have to do with my success? Yeah.
Well, and talking about being delusional, religion, they say, is the opium of the masses. There's also another story on page 12. Nerima, maybe I'll get you on this. A lecturer held that the son's body was found in a house. Now, the story is that this young boy, according to the mother, who they lived together, fell and possibly got an injury. But because her religion does not believe in hospital, he did not take the boy to hospital. And they stayed together in the house.
But cameramen,
si
wanajua pia kuchange just in case.
Change them.
Frequencies.
Very, very disturbing, beliefs that we may have gotten ourselves into.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I think we use the right words by saying disturbing, because it is, it's worrying as well, because we're not only just talking.
This is KTN News.
Tunayo benki inayotufaa sisi wateja na wafanyikazi, tuko pamoja, lengo letu moja, kuyaboresha maisha ya watu. Benki yangu, benki yako, benki yetu ni Equity. Ni benki ya watu wote, ni benki inayotujali, ni benki inayotujali.
Looking for a way to stay informed on matters Central Kenya? Well, the Mount Kenya Star has got you covered. This is the weekly newspaper that brings you all the news from the local political scene, farming, business, and education in the area, with a dose of the culture in and around the Mount Kenya region. So, be sure to grab your copy of the Mount Kenya Star and never miss a story, informative articles, and just what the business community leaders are doing to stay ahead. Mount Kenya Star, agribusiness and enterprise newspaper.
Ko tayari kupanda miti.
Unapopanda mti huenda usipate nafasi ya kufurahia matunda yake, lakini kesho kuna yule ambaye atafurahia kivuli chake.
Mti naitwa aje?
Macadamia.
Mnajua umuhimu wa miti kweli? Mnaona? Tutaokota, sawa? Ndio tutumie tena ili isiharibu mazingira yetu.
Nimepanda mti kwa mara ya kwanza na nasikia vizuri.
Kuna miti mingine ambayo hutupa madawa.
Miti yanafanya mvua yaje
Na pia hufanya mazingira ikuwe beautiful.
Niko tayari zaidi kulinda mazingira yetu na sijali yale ambayo naweza nikapitia.
Tazama shujaa wa wiki kwenye KTN News. Ijumaa saa moja.
Katikati ya nyika za Machakos, kuna familia inatafuta majibu.
Mimi sikustuka, lakini huyo wa Michael alistuka na akaniambia mimi siwezi kaa kwa hii mboma.
Baba yangu alikuwa na hii, lakini watu hawakujua.
Vizazi vinaangamia. Wachanga kwa wavyele wamekengeukiwa na jinsi ya kung'oa mizizi ya ndwele tatanishi.
Sasa muacha huyu juu ya hii ugonjwa, nenda ipata mwingine na age immediately.
Siku moja utatupata tukiwa tu sawa.
The most likely clinical condition that I was thinking about is what we call a spinocerebellar ataxia.
Viki ya mwendo, naye Lofty Matambo.
Wazazi wetu walikuwa wanahakikisha kwanza kupenda jamii, pili heshima kwa kila mtu. Kama ni mfanyakazi, kama ni mheshimiwa, lazima. Nilifika kwenye daraja au njia panda unaweza kusema. Unasema okay, sasa je, nifuate mapenzi au niende kupata kazi Benki ya Dunia? Mwaka jana August nikasema tuko Kenya, UNEP imekuwa hapa tangu mwaka 1972. Je, mwanakijiji ambaye yuko Western Region au wapi anataka, mbona hatuna website ya Kiswahili? Kwa tukasukuma system, na nashukuru UNEP na wafanyakazi wengi sana. Sasa hivi tuna website na mtandao wa Kiswahili.
Danger and adventure lurk everywhere in the den. The competition and drama is always boiling over.
I am a big deal.
Not a player. How big is your team?
I'm the only person here who can give you what you're looking for.
Lions should be fair to entrepreneurs.
So speak. I've spoken. So I've spoken too.
Let me just help you.
If you missed last week's episode of Lion's Den Season 4, you can catch the repeat episode Sunday at 12 p.m. only on KTN. KCB Lion's Den.
It is a scarce commodity in Nairobi.
Tunapataka maji mara moja.
It is expensive.
Ufue, uoge, watoto waoge, kila kitu 300.
The demand is increasing.
0.970 million made out of the water business.
In all of this, the poor are getting a raw deal. Slum dwellers being the biggest target of a vibrant and competitive water market.
The water is diverted so that these people can buy water.
Ukichemusa inakuwa kali.
From the water cartels who charge a premium for water of dubious quality to the faces of poor Kenyans who drink contaminated water.
Ukienda kwa choo unaona ana haradamu. It was not fit even for watering plants.
This is the story of a valuable slum commodity.
This is KTN News.
All right, and welcome back. We do apologize for that abrupt break, but we are now back and we continue looking at our dailies. But I'll also take this opportunity to welcome David Osiani, who is a political strategist. It looks like the airwaves had been taken over, but we now have repossessed them.
Just arrived. we must find out whether it's the Illuminati out there or Osiani who needing to come into studio did some
whatever the case, wameshindwa. We have triumphed. Hallelujah. Anyway, back to the dailies.
I can see you found your roots.
No, I found my roots. Don't even get me started.
Oh, hallelujah.
We could start a crusade right about now. But anyway, we've recaptured the airwaves and we are now back and going back to the dailies.
The air is defeated.
We are back to the dailies. And we were looking at the Standard. We were on the front page. We've already covered that. But let's look at page 4. And this is good news for Kenyans. It looks like the Twitter rappers and the keyboard warriors got their day. Remember when there was the debate as to who should take over Safaricom. There was lots of people saying that it should be a Kenyan, and it looks like that has happened. Peter Ndegwa is now the appointed CEO who begins or takes the corner office at Safaricom, and that's going to be starting April 1st, 2020. David Osiani, now that you're the one who's come in, your thoughts on this, and good news for Kenya, I guess, and for Safaricom.
I think when Bob died, the next day I was actually on KTN, mourning Bob, and the rage had begun on social media as to who's to take over. The going of Michael Joseph to that place was, questioned. And I said it would be a good thing for a Kenyan to take over. But I also predicted correctly
When the Kenyan takes over, then we will now come downwards to another battle. At that point, we were fighting, internationals versus locals. I knew when it came to local, we will go tribe. So, that has been a debate already. I saw someone writing, C.S. Musheru has appointed and it has been announced by Nganga, the chair of the board. I knew it was going to come. But even if it goes to Kikuyu, the Kikuyu land, I tell you, the people of Nyeri are going to say, sasa hii ni yetu, and the people of Muranga will fight it at that level. This is what we need to rise above. We need to appreciate talent. Of course, cognizant of the fact that we are an ethnocentric country, there definitely needs to be consideration. But you cannot throw the baby with the bathwater. You're not just going to dismiss an intelligent young man who's done well in his career, who befits the role just because of his tribe. I know tribe is an issue. So congratulations to Safaricom for honoring Kenyans and showing that indeed there are Kenyans who can run the country's largest corporate outfit. That, for me, on its own, is a great joy.
Is a great job. Philip, when do you find or think that in Kenya we shall rise above this? Because here we were making noise and saying, yes, a Kenyan should take over. At that point, it didn't matter where that Kenyan came from. But like David Osiani rightly says, once the person is appointed, then now we go to our common denominator, which is tribe. Very unfortunate.
It is the nature of our politics, and our politicians respond to the demands by the public, such that if the public want one of their own, then who is a politician to go against their will? We could see the other day when the president sacked the board, the KFS board, the people in Mombasa rose up and said one of our own has been sacked. What is the president then to do? Most of the time, actually, our politicians are captive to the nature of the politics within the country. And we need to rise above that. Safaricom has showed us the way, and that is that the appointment of Mr. Peter Ndegwa is purely based on merit, not on any other consideration. And that is why we've been saying here over and over again, we wouldn't mind if we had 18 Peter Ndegwas in the cabinet. We wouldn't mind if we had 18 Matiangis in the cabinet. We wouldn't mind if all the members of the cabinet were Magoha. As long as we have people chosen on merit. On merit. As long as we have a team that is equal to the one that we took to the World Athletic Championship, or the ones that we take to the marathon, we wouldn't really mind who sits on those the boards, who sits in the cabinet or whatever. But the problem has been that the first consideration usually has been nepotism, tribalism, favoritism, and that is what the country has embroiled itself in, and that is why we have the BBI. That is why the country goes to war every other 5 years. That is why everybody wants to have his kinsman as the president. And I think, once we break away from that, we wouldn't mind if we had a president from Central through and through, or from...
Well, you say you wouldn't mind, but maybe one might say that's an elitist way of looking at it, but when it goes to the ground, maybe they might.
Not really elitist. It's an idealist way of looking at it. And we should be aspiring for such ideals. We shouldn't be aspiring to be normal. We shouldn't be aspiring to be where we are, or be more of who we are, because we really don't like it. We should aspire for more, and I aspire for more as a
country. I think the problem with the Kenyan context has been that those who have risen to proper positions of leadership have been the ones perpetuating tribalism, in that when they get to those positions, they have only appointed their cronies who speak in their mother tongues. They have not risen beyond that, so that they demonstrate that it is possible to have, perpetuated presidency belonging to one particular ethnic group, yet the whole country benefits, for example, or leadership of an organization such as Safaricom coming from a particular, ethnic caucus or construct, yet benefiting everyone below them. So it is a call to leaders who rise to these positions to be very aware always that the salient truth is that we have issues at the base, at the bottom, and that problem called tribalism can only be fixed when people see that at the top there is a consideration of different ethnic groups. When you do that, if Nganga today goes to Safaricom And the next thing you get is that everyone in his office, from the PA to the secretary to the bodyguard to everyone else, he's speaking in Kikuyu. That will be a problem. If, however, he does what Willy Mutunga did. Willy Mutunga, I think, when he was the CJ, did what none of these people have done. When he was CJ, he had 12 bodyguards. A third of them were women. And all the 12 were from different tribes. He was aware that this is an issue. I can't have a driver speaking Kikamba, my bodyguard speaking Kikamba, my secretary speaking Kikamba, my chief of staff speaking Kikamba. That is what leadership is. Leadership that is aware of the realities, our cultural realities.
All right, Nerima, you don't deal a lot with the youth, and it was the hope of many that the youth would be the revolution for this country. But when we look at Twitter, when we look at online, and that's where these conversations are taking place, majority of these are young people. Do you feel, or from your, where you are, like that revolution is taking place? And what do we require for us to have that mindset? We need a paradigm shift, literally.
It is a paradigm shift, and I agree a lot with what David is talking about, because you see it even within the counties. The people who work within county government depends on what tribe the governor is. And it's a very high turnover, because a lot of governors don't end up coming back, and they move with their people. And yeah, and it's unfortunate, but also it's very difficult because young people are also brought up in the same country that we're living in, under the same stereotypes. And I found it very interesting that Safaricom is also changing what their motto is to transparency, honesty, simplicity. And it made me question, why? Why do you feel that way? And it's going to be actually very difficult for the new CEO to now meet that, because there are current stereotypes that we have about the Kikuyus. And so I think our country, there are terms when it comes to tribalisms that we grapple with. And there's one thing that I am grateful to my parents, that we are completely different tribes and we don't quite understand our different tribes. We see ourselves first as Kenyan. But I would meet friends and they would look at me with pity and say, it's such a shame. You mean you don't speak your language?
Your mother tongue.
Oh my gosh.
Whereas some might argue and say that, is a cultural, there are those who will argue that kosa mila ni mtumwa. Whether that is true or not. Bichachi, as we close on this, mainly, how do you see Kenya revolutionizing and moving from tribalism? Because our politicians use that as political capital, and as long as we rely on them, that change is not about to happen.
The issue of our ethnicized politics and our ethnicized lens to life is tied to the issue of theft. The idea of why it is important to us that our person is in a certain position is we always imagine that now all the Safaricom masts will appear in Murang'a and Nyeri, and in Western Kenya there will be no new masts. Because our imagination has always been that if you get a president from Shinyalu, then Shinyalu will have the best roads in the country.
Probably even get a state house.
Yes, and that's how we think. And we forget, and I've said many, many times, that it does not make sense to equate success to tribe, because if that were the case, then we know that today as we speak, Baringo would be the richest county. And President Kibaki's former constituency, the richest constituency in central Othaya. And that's not the case. The truth is, if you look at Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, you cannot say that the roads that he's built are built in central. And that thinking is what is the problem. And just to underscore that, even when you put Raphael Tuju in cabinet, the Luo still say we are not represented. Because representation for Kenyans is the person is looting for us. If you look at the people who scream most at who is our man only becomes our man post-stealing. These good people, look at Martha Karua, whose woman is she? You understand? Look at Peter Kenneth. Whose man is he? Because the people who are not directly associated, and I'm not saying these guys are saints, I'm just saying the people who are not directly associated with kleptocracy are not considered our man. And therefore, this appointment of this person, any person who looks at him as a Kikuyu, looks at him from the lens of what is he going to steal for us or for them. But any person who looks at him as a professional must ask himself if Diageo could trust him with such a huge market area, surely we can trust him with Safaricom. And when he was in Europe, was he a Kikuyu in Europe? You know, was he supervising a bunch of Kikuyu minions in his office? So we need to change our paradigm because our tribalism is tied to theft. Listen, today, if you look at all the campaigns going on, the people who they say ni mtu wetu lazima ingie hiyo ofisi are the people who are most associated with corruption. Prove me wrong.
All right, and
this is why, sorry to
we need to move on from
underscore the need for a paradigm shift in terms of tribalism, a concerted effort both by the citizenry and its leadership. Because even if we were to get the BBI document, and I really hope that we get the changes and that they edify the country, what does it solve? All right? You are still going to have an executive president, most likely, if what I have seen bandied around is anything truthful. Go by. If you have an executive, he will appoint a prime minister. So, you see, it is almost obvious that he will appoint the people with whom he is aligned. If you go to Rift Valley, and then let's say that we end up with a president who the people of Rift Valley did not like. If he appoints a person from Rift Valley as prime minister who ran against the grain, that will be an outcast.
Yes.
It means that we need to fundamentally fix this country. So let us not take the shine away from Peter Ndegwa. I think he's done a stellar and illustrious job in his career. And while he takes over that role, he must, however, be alive to the realities of this country. That those are the things that are said, and he has a duty twice as much to prove the country wrong.
All right, and well, as Kenya, we must rise above that. How that is going to happen remains to be seen. Page 6 of the Standard, we have a story there, shocking details of how teachers are killing students' career dreams. Now, these are teachers apparently, according to this article, there is a system where principals are supposed to submit school applications for individual students, but some head teachers do not make any applications to universities and tertiary colleges, citing the anticipated poor academic performance of their institutions in national examinations. So basically, they do not register the students because they anticipate, they predict and feel that because they're going to perform poorly, there is no point of putting their results ahead. Yet, according to the system, it's only those principals that can register their students. Magal.
I think that is an excuse by the head teachers, basically trying to sidestep their jobs. When it comes to making these applications, somebody is so busy somewhere else. When asked eventually, why didn't you do this? He says, I expected my school to perform. I mean, how do you expect your school to perform poorly?
What are you even doing as head?
Yes, it is your work to see to it that they perform well. And even then, even if you doubt their capacity, you should still remain hopeful and make sure that they do well and that you do make the applications. There's a lot at stake in our education system. There's a recent report which shows that it has really deteriorated, and I blame it purely on the government. It launched the free primary, free secondary without much thought or without the ability to really deliver. We can see it in the universities as well. Universities are grossly underfunded. The other day I saw students going on strike that the fees are being hiked. But then how do you expect these universities to survive when they're not being funded by the government? You can see the lecturers on strike, the students on strike. You can see the state of the primary school education as well. So many schools were closed the other day, even in my own county, and the government the governor really had to stand up and speak against it. He questioned the propriety of closing down schools when there are no other alternatives. You can't declare a structure unfit for use, yet you don't give these students...
You've not provided one,
an
yet
alternative.
the government that is supposed to do that.
There is supposed to be 100% transition from primary school to secondary schools. Where are the schools? Where are the teachers? I mean, are they just supposed to go to get an admission to high school and that is it? And then after university, from high school, what next? We need to relook at our education system. We look at how we incentivize the teachers at the tertiary institutions, the TVETs, as well as the universities, all the way to the bottom to see to it that education more.
All right, briefly, David Osiani, before we move on to another story.
Paradox on the 2 pages. So one teacher has done so well, Mr. Ademba of Asumbi Secondary School in Homa Bay County,
internationally.
Becomes the best teacher in Africa, awarded by the AU Continental Teacher Prize, the inaugural one. On the adjacent page, other teachers are killing the careers of their young ones. It is painful that of all the people, a teacher would lose such belief in his students that he would not care a single whiff to make placement for them to universities and tertiary colleges. I think some of these teachers need to be looked at in the eye. I've seen the leading counties are Kiambu, Kakamega, Nairobi, you know, and I'm wondering, Bungoma, I'm wondering, where is conscience?
Where is conscience?
Mwalimu, when you go back home and you have denied these children, at least you think they're stupid, but even kids that you think are stupid surprise us. Unless you have not read about Ben Carson, who became the world's best and biggest neurosurgeon, but was believed to be a dunderhead in class. Believe in your students. Okay.
It's beyond words. All right, there's also a story on page 8, Nerima. Let's, page 8, let adult women go for the cut, doctor tells court. This is a rather interesting turn of events. It is illegal currently, but according to Dr. Tatu, she argues that if a woman would want to go for the cut, well, it is within her right.
Yes, I actually had received phone calls yesterday with some of my friends who are very involved in the case. And her argument is that the individual is an adult above 18 years old.
They can make that decision
so they can make
themselves.
that decision for themselves. And it's quite complicated because even when we think about FGM and the cultural aspect of it and tradition, who makes who better than thou? Like, who decides that what you're doing
is right or wrong?
Is right or wrong, if the individual feels that that's their culture and that's what they want to do. And it's complex because you also have cases where they're actually, cases where women are hurt and it completely changes their physique. And that is concerning. So I don't know how that case is going to go. I do hear that it was quite heated and I'm not sure. I don't know.
What is your take on this? The reason why it was made illegal purely is because of the issues, of course, that it is against human rights. But here we have, and interestingly, a lady who's championing for it to be made legal, a doctor.
I once attended a meeting on gender violence, and as much of the room agreed that gender violence was wrong, there was one lady in the room who got up and she said, if you're not beaten, how do you know the man loves you? And you have to pause and think about that statement, because oftentimes abuse and torture can be presented to us as a rite of passage. And it's a uniquely Kenyan thing, because if you look at engineers, for example, how many engineers have graduated from campus? But because the engineers who sit in the organization that approves for them to have the title engineer feel it should not be an easy thing. So for a long time, it was only people who graduated from Nairobi University who were allowed to have the title engineer. Or maybe if you graduated from Egerton and you did agricultural engineering, every other engineering was never engineering enough. And we must look at this issue from that lens. It was banned because the people who did it on our women told them, this is how you know you've become a real woman. This is how you become a real woman, because unless you're missing a certain amount of flesh, you're not woman enough. Now, what is the danger? The danger here is not that adults cannot make choices. Of course they can. The danger here is if you allow a leeway for the people who've bandied around the negative stereotypes and the things that abused the women in the past, if you give them a crack in the door, they will break down the gates. And we need to be very careful to defend the gains that we've had. And we need to understand also that male circumcision is also male genital mutilation. Fine that doctors have found that it has some medical value, but the truth of the matter is it is not an absolute necessity. And the culturalization and normalization of ritual is what portends danger for our society. What do I mean? That if what this lady is suggesting is the abuse that you would have suffered at 12 or 14, let us postpone it until you're 19. Now think about it.
You make the decision.
You will not make the decision at 19. Which 19-year-old decides? 19-year-olds in this country still live with their parents. 19-year-olds in this country still do what their parents want, especially in the villages. So you want to tell me that you're going to convince someone whose parents can't afford pads for her, who still believe deeply in their rituals, that now all you have to do is wait 5 more years. All our women will end up being abused.
I see Nerima shaking her head in disagreement, but we have to take a break. But do stay